we're good.
Okay. So we can start with number 1, task clarification, making sure every group member understands the task at hand.
Let's make sure to talk loud.
Yeah, just so the camera can get us.
Okay. So we all understand the task is to have this discussion.
I have a question. Do you guys think I should audio record too, just in case that doesn't work out?
Sure.
Like, why not, right? Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, keep going.
Okay. So the task at hand is, that's not the problem with identification yet. So we're talking about, we have to have this discussion and we all want to find out what the primary cause of depression is and what we can do to combat it specifically here at Penn State.
Yeah.
That's essentially the motive, you know, do well in the class, do well in this discussion.
We'll all hopefully pull out an A. That'd be nice. So what exactly is the problem?
I think the more pressure college kids are getting heightens this issue. Because I know when, just speaking with my parents, like when they were at school, it wasn't as intense as it is now. There's a lot more competition because there's a lot more kids in college.
Yeah.
Which leads to this problem, actually.
I think some of the competitiveness may also stem from the fact that college has gotten more, like, doing well in college has gotten more accessible, such as like the internet, so like resources are a lot more easier to access. And so with that, because finding answers are so easy now, like you have to do a lot more than just like know the answer, but go the step further, and that maybe like what stresses students out too, because like they're not used to going deep within the material. Like from high school, we're just so used to like finding the answers.
Yeah. Well, I guess we can all agree that the problem is depression amongst college students and how it's increasing. But what do you think is like the definition of depression these days?
I mean, I think it could be a wide variety of things at this point. I guess clinically, depression is just defined as a term that's like when someone is starting to feel overburdened or overpressured by whatever situation that they're in, to a point where they don't really want to associate with others. They want to be more exclusive, like towards themselves. You just start to see them less often, like wherever you're at. There's a lot of different like definitions for depression, or like different qualifications that you can meet.
Like, do you think you can be depressed without being like physically diagnosed?
Yeah, I think so. And I think you might also not even know if you're depressed nowadays.
That's interesting because I saw like in my research in 2011, the American College of Health Association stated that 30% of college students report as depressed, but the actual definition of depression is a serious mental illness marked by a sad or anxious feeling which persists for more than a couple of days and interferes with daily activities. And so I personally think that 30% would be an underreported number, just because we don't necessarily know that we're depressed as college students. And I read somewhere in my research that a lot of times students think that it's just part of the normal like college anxiety and college stress.
I mean, I just think that when you try to define it that way, that it's really hard to do in this case, because depression kind of acts as a blanket term because there's so many different types of it. Almost, I mean, you have the stamina disorder, the psychotic depression. Some people mistake depression for early stages of bipolar disorder. So I really think that it kind of just comes in as kind of like almost an early signal in some cases for something that's more serious later on, that you don't really notice until you're in college and you're in new environments like that becomes noticed.
Yeah. Do you guys think depression like comes and goes? Like, do you think some people have like short-term like depression, like for like an interim period? Like, let's say if they have, I know
that technically is like it's like an actual thing. It's called like seasonal affective disorder. So you get it like in the winter when it's like the sun's not out and stuff. and you're inside all day, so you can actually become depressed. And like in the summer when like the sun comes out and like you don't have classes and stuff to keep you stressed, I think depression can like significantly decrease.
Yeah, I think it's very like situational based also. Just like in terms of like, let's say you just, you know, as a college student, you bomb a test, and then it impacted your grade a lot, and you're sitting there depressed for a little while. But as soon as you're done the class and all, and you finally put it behind you, I mean, at some point you're forced to move on. So I don't think you're like, for the most part, I don't think most college students are like long-term depressed. I think it's more of a thing like just for your 4 years here.
So you would say that depression is more based on like your stress level in college?
I mean, I think that's like the majority of college students facing depression or whatever you want to call it, because clinically, I guess we don't even know technically who isn't depressed. So.
So are you saying like everybody gets sad kind of thing, but it's only really depression when it starts to interfere with your daily life?
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know if you can classify it fully as actual depression, like long-term depression.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that's really a good, like an important indication for us to remember, like that everyone can feel sad and like down about things, but like, for it to be real depression, like clinically, like you said, has to be like for more than weeks at a time, and it has to like interfere with your daily lifestyle.
So it's different than like anxiety.
Exactly.
Like a lot of college students get anxiety about like writing papers or a test coming up.
Exactly. Like you wouldn't say like I'm depressed about this paper that I have to write.
Yeah.
I mean, something you very well could be, but.
Mm-hmm. It's funny you said the thing about the summer and winter because Seattle, Washington, has the highest suicide rate in the country, and it's like cloudy and rainy there like, most of the time.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's the reason. I'm just saying it's a weird thing to think about.
I would say that like some more causes of depression, specifically within college students, because I think it really is very serious how much like depression is increasing like continuously throughout the years. We could say that it's based on stress academically, which we talked about. There's also stress financially because college is becoming so expensive. I know that like I worry about paying for school because I'm out of state and it's like $40,000 here. Also, how college is becoming like a new norm. So it's not exactly. I read an article where it talked about how depression increases as external motivation factors increase. I think it was. It was conducted at the University of Colorado, but internal motivation is characterized as like setting goals for yourself and being driven, whereas externally is less like goal driven. So you could say that because college has become a new norm, that it's not exactly stressing academic excellence as much as like we're just kind of forced to go straight into it after high school.
Yeah.
Like you could say that that also adds to external motivation, which in turn leads to more depression.
Like I can see what you were saying where like the grades can kind of become more mediocre because everyone's getting like good grades, but then it also makes me think about like how for a lot of different programs the acceptance rates are like decreasing because everyone has the same like standardized criteria, so it's like harder to like even get in there, you know.
Yeah.
So maybe like everyone's like averaging out, but like on towards the better trend, the higher grade trend.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's that thing like when your parents say like it's not that hard to get an A, and it's like it may not have been that hard for you back like 30, 40 years ago, but it becomes so much harder because curriculum's constantly changing and the like you know what I'm trying to say.
Plus, it's harder to get a job nowadays.
Oh yeah.
So, like, depending on what type of work you're going into, you have to do better in these classes as opposed to, you know, just passing by and then getting a degree in college. Like, especially, I mean, I guess, like, for example, if you're trying to go into, like, medical school like I am, like, you have to get, like, A's for the most part in everything. And, like, when you don't get that, it actually, like, shows up on your transcript. And, like, when I know a couple of my friends, when they get their med school interviews, like, I know one of them had, like, a B+ in one class, and they're like, oh, what happened here? Whereas like for everyone else, it's just like, oh wow, it's a B plus, like it's no big deal. But it's like they view it as something like, oh my god, like it's something huge.
Negative.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like just like I guess like the demand for jobs nowadays, like people are trying, like everything has become more competitive now. It's harder to get in anywhere for anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you have to perform even better in your classes now, as opposed to just, you know, graduating and getting your degree.
Yeah. No, I had like read this actually. Stat: depression is actually the #1 reason that students drop out of college, or die, like committing suicide while in college. That's pretty nuts.
Yeah, that is crazy.
I think whenever we try to think of the different solutions, that it's important to remember like the different causes of depression. And so along with all like the academic rigor that we talked about, like depression is also attributed towards like us young adults having a new transition in our life and like being separate from our family and our routine that we've been having for like 18 years. So if we can somehow adjust that within our solution, I think we can find the best way to solve it.
I think we can also take into account like the huge culture shock that comes with coming to college. We, like you said, we've been used to the same routine until we're 18. And then we come to college and it's completely different. Like most of us are living here and don't see our families for a very long time. So that can contribute to like instability issues, I suppose, which can lead to depression. And also, Betsy said something at the end of last class where she said mental illnesses start to emerge at this age. So
she talks about like schizophrenia.
Yeah. I tried to look into that, but I couldn't find a lot on it.
What kind of role do you think depression plays in like relationships? Like if you break up with somebody or someone breaks up with you?
That's interesting to know because in college clearly we're like meeting a whole bunch of new people and like starting and ending relationships very quickly, so that can play into it.
I think if we consider like our Erickson stage of intimacy versus isolation now, that's really important, and what we find as like happiness and what we consider depression. So like being that like everything else could be like going well within our lives, but if we don't achieve that intimacy within like either our friends or like a partner, and that can really affect like our overall well-being.
Yeah, definitely.
I was reading up on some other things, and clearly, like, how well do you think depression plays into the like drinking culture here at Penn State?
Oh, drinking definitely is an inhibitor of depression. The more you can say, like, you can call it anxiety or depression, but if you drink for an extended period of time, like a lot of people do at Penn State, when you stop drinking, you go into a state of depression.
But people like also drink because of depression.
Yeah, and that's what
it's
that's
like
what
an
I'm saying.
ending cycle.
It's a vicious circle.
You can think of it the other way too. Like someone who's depressed will drink a lot, also, but it's not the sort of like party drinking that.
I think that also, I was looking at the National Institute of
social
Health.
drinking.
So according to the National Institute of Health, though, it says that like research suggested that students with depression do not necessarily drink alcohol more heavily than others, but they are more likely to get drunk and experience problems. So it's not like when they go out every time, you know, they just drink a lot more than everyone.
Yeah.
This is that they're more frequently going out. But I do know that it's that students that have depression are more likely to smoke for sure.
Yeah. I was also reading on like the Journal of American College Health, and the like stat was that problem drinking prevalences range from a low 6% to a high of 72%, with most studies suggesting that approximately 20 to 25% of students have drinking problems. And I think that's like a huge attribution to like our drinking culture here at Penn State, because obviously some people drink to like forget things, and there's a difference between drinking for like social drinking and drinking to like forget your problems, which I guess you could say that there's a lot of both here.
Yeah.
I've seen both.
Yeah, I feel like everyone just works throughout the week, waiting for the weekend to just go get drunk, basically.
So true.
Yeah. Have you guys heard of the Sunday Scaries?
No, it's not.
No, it's like, I mean, it's like, so like the weekend comes, so like if you don't have class Friday, you drink Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday, since you've been drinking for 3 days, like you go through like withdrawals. It's like it's like anxiety or depression, you can call it. It's like you're like laying there on your couch on all Sunday, and you're just like thinking of everything that you missed, or something, everything that like you have to do tomorrow, that like is due on Monday or something like that. It's just like, even if nothing's due, like if you're completely fine and there's nothing due on Monday or Tuesday, you still like have anxiety about like everything.
Yeah.
It's not like everyone calls it the Sunday Scaries, which I think is pretty funny, but it's like, it's basically just like a withdrawal / depression from drinking.
I never knew there was like a term for that.
Mm.
I guess it's more like just like a made up term, though.
Yeah, it's just like, it's just what a bunch of like,
But like it's
A bunch
prevalent
of
enough that there is a term.
Yeah.
yeah.
But since we're talking about drinking so much, do you think if depression decreased, drinking would decrease here? Because we do have that drinking culture, and there's a little bit of both.
Honestly, I don't think so. Like, I also saw that information that Ahmed spoke about from the National Institute of Health. And like he said, people who are depressed don't necessarily drink more, but they are like more likely to engage in risky behaviors. So I think that like maybe our sexual abuses or like physical harassments that occurs on campus would decrease, or even what are other problems like drugs.
I was gonna say, what about moving away from alcohol? I'm talking
Yeah,
about
that might. I
drugs.
feel like people would lean towards more like heavy substances and shit.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Or like there's even withdrawals from like drugs will give you depression. Like,
Oh, I'm sure.
yeah, like
Oh, yeah.
I'm prescribed Adderall, and like when I take Adderall for like 2 days and then you stop taking it, like one of the symptoms is like you're very sad / depressed like for the next day. It's a weird feeling. It's like a weird feeling.
Were you like generally sad before you began at all?
No. You just, it's just like you're like when you come off, like when you stop taking it, you like are just like, you're like wow, like, well, life's so much better on Adderall. It's like you're just like sad. Like it's not like, it only lasts for like, obviously it only lasts for a couple of hours, but like it's a weird feeling. It's not a good feeling. It's crazy.
Do you think like that, like we could kind of like further extend your like, Adderall experience, like drugs or like alcohol, but like do you think that feeling of that like momentarily withdrawal like contributes towards addiction, whether it's drugs or alcohol?
Oh, 100%. There's people who take Adderall every day, which I don't understand. I don't understand how they do that. Yeah,
Like prescribed or non-prescribed?
prescribed. Like I'm prescribed to take Adderall every day. I don't at all. But it's nuts how like people.
That's how people
do
need to like be dependent on it, because they're like, oh, I can't do this paper or this project
I
without
feel like you
taking
eventually
Adderall.
become immune to that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe.
you build up a
If you
tolerance
take it
and
every
you have to
single
get
day,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, if you stop it, if you stop like taking it, if you've taken it every day for a
Yeah.
while, I couldn't even imagine like the state you'd be in. You'd probably be like a zombie.
true.
Yeah, I had a friend who took Adderall every day for like a year or two because she had really bad ADD, and then she stopped and she was like a zombie for 2 months, and her grades like dropped significantly.
Mhm.
Oh, man.
How did she overcome that? Maybe we can apply that to alcohol.
I know that for her, she like used something else, like instead of taking Adderall, like nothing bad, she like just drank a lot of coffee, and that like sort of countered it, but like
Mhm.
I don't think you could really do that with drugs, where instead of taking one, you take another. Yeah.
Make that better.
But it was really hard for her for 2 months. Like her grades dropped significantly, and she was very like depressed.
Well, it would be so nice to say that, like, you know how, like, exercise gives you, like, it helps your neurotransmitters and stuff like that. Like, it would be nice to say that we can propose solutions that'll also, like, help your neurotransmitters. But the thing is that alcohol is a depressant, so, like, doesn't do anything for that.
I was reading up on the exercise stuff too, and there was a study on about the American Journal of Orthopsy. psychiatry, I don't know how to pronounce that, but it said that there was like an inverse correlation between days of exercise per week and screening positive for depression. So essentially that's saying that if we exercise more, we will be less depressed. And I was proposing that perhaps one of like the solutions that Penn State could combat depression could be to offer free gym memberships, because we do have to pay for our facilities, and I know a lot of my friends didn't want to pay like the $110, so they don't have a gym membership. And
So you think it should be included in tuition?
I mean, we do pay like $40,000 a year, and then have to pay for the
That wouldn't
gym.
be that bad of a
I was shocked that I had to pay for a gym membership.
Yeah,
Like, I'm also out of state.
it's a lot. So that could be one of the solutions to combat it.
Before we fully move into solutions, what other information do you guys think we need?
I think there needs to be more statistics on it, because like doing my research, I didn't find many like actual like percentages or stats or numbers.
I think it's
on
very hard to get like a concrete number on depression.
Yeah, so I think that goes back to like there's not really like a concrete definition of depression either.
Yeah.
And I was
It's
looking at
big.
studies, and they're like all pretty outdated too.
Well, the studies that I found that were coming out of Loyola University about this, and it wasn't so much as like you were diagnosing people with depression, but whether or not you felt that you were depressed. So they had one from Loyola where 150,000 college freshmen, there was an increase from the 6.1% reported feeling depressed in 2009 to 2014, 2015, where there was 9.5% were feeling depressed. It's like about a 3% change, but still you're having an upward trend year by year of people feeling depressed more and more.
Yeah, and then like maybe more accurate statistics is a better way to say it, because like I found one that says 44% of American college students report having symptoms of depression. It's a little under half, so that's a little hard to believe. I would think.
Well, the symptoms of depression though are just like
Some are so broad.
it's just like sad, anxious, empty, hopeless, guilty, worthless, helpless, irritable, restless. Like any of those, pretty sure everyone feels that at some point
I feel
in
that every
college.
exam period.
Yeah, it's like a huge percentage.
Just kidding.
I read it too that like 1 out of 4 students have reported symptoms, and actually 1 out of 10 students have reported like thoughts of suicide, which that's a huge
That's a big,
percentage.
yeah.
10%
That's
10%?
have contemplated suicide.
that's a crazy stat.
That's a lot.
Well, it's just, I mean, we've looked at the National Institute of Health before. When you look at like what they list as the causes, it's everything that everybody going into college as freshmen is going to experience: living away from family for the first time, missing family and friends, feeling alone or isolated, experiencing conflict in relationships, facing sometimes difficult schoolwork, worrying about finance. We've actually discussed all of those throughout this discussion so far.
Yeah.
So the nation's very definitely there.
I think another problem with like finding concrete statistics is that like Ryan was kind of mentioning, like a lot of people won't admit they're depressed because like at the end of the day it's essentially a mental illness. So people are going to be reluctant to admit that they're depressed and are more likely to admit that they have symptoms of depression. But also like when it comes to the statistics for the suicides that are attributed to our depression, you can't really ask a dead person like if their depression caused them to die or to do suicide. So there kind of needs to be like a pre-intervention between it. So I mean that's challenging to find a solution.
Yeah.
That's why I think like awareness needs to be a bigger thing. Like before I researched this, I had no idea that 1 out of every 4 students like reported symptoms of depression, and that only is people that reported. So it is super common, and I think it's huge that we need to make it more, make people more aware of the fact that it's so common and they're not like in it alone, I guess, which could possibly lead to suicide.
Yeah. Like it's in the article I was just reading. It was it says right in the top, the student themselves are often reluctant to seek help due to social stigmas related to depression. So like a lot of people don't go like a lot of people don't like get help because the social stigma about depression is that like you're weak or something along those lines. Is that depression is seen as a negative, and you don't want anyone to know that you have depression, so you just don't get help. If you guys know,
Yeah,
you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No, that's true.
Like I've had friends with depression and it takes a while for them to open up to you and like tell you that they have it because they're so like afraid of what you'll think of them.
Mhm.
My friend had to like go to, it's a different friend, but she had to go to like a therapist and stuff every week because it got to the point where it was that bad. And she actually she got therapy here at like Penn State.
She got CAPS.
Yeah, I was researching that. Do you guys know if it's like free? Or
It is free.
it is free?
That is true.
But just going off that, I know that like in the ROTC, like the military environment, you can't tell them that you're depressed or you'll be kicked out for it because it's a mental illness.
Yeah.
So if you can't have peanut allergy, you clearly can't have
You can't have
Depression.
peanut nut allergy.
like you can't have allergies to anything. You can't have any kind of like like natural deficiencies, I guess you could say.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Just because like it could cause you to not be able to perform effectively in the field, so
Liability.
putting other people's lives in danger. Yeah. Like I know that recently
That makes so much
there was
sense.
a cadet who got kicked out for taking antidepressants that they were prescribed.
So could they like just do an investigation in his medical record?
Well, they can't. I don't think they can investigate you like that. But they just people saw this person was doing this, told up the chain, and they got kicked out because they were.
Yeah.
They met after that, and
That's why like Air Force, like fighter jets, like you literally have to take like tests like every every couple of months or something like that, to make sure you're not on any like medications or anything that like could inhibit your ability to fly on one of those things, just because there's so much money and like so many people you're putting people's lives in your hands.
Do they allow a probation period, like if you need remediation, or if you just get kicked out completely?
I mean,
Yeah.
if it's a mental illness.
Yeah,
if it's
Yeah,
like
it's not
like they
gonna
wouldn't
go
let
away.
you in if you told them that. I would just say that they wouldn't let you into the program or into the military in that capacity if you told them that you have clinical depression.
But if you're already in, do they give you like time to get better?
Well, I don't think depression ever really goes away if you have it. You can like combat it, but
This is like the
clinically
allergies.
diagnosed is like
What?
Because
Don't
We're
know.
talking
the
about-
allergies.
We're
like,
talking
they're
about
not gonna give you
clinical, like
time
we're
to,
talking about
wait.
like an actual mental
We're talking about
Allergy.
clinical depression,
Let me know when you're ready.
not just anxiety about a test or something like that. We're talking about like clinical.
I guess because depression has like exacerbations or remissions. Like obviously, if you're like better one time, they're not gonna trust that you'll always be better. If like a stressor doesn't happen. Okay, so let's talk about solution criteria.
Solution to the problem?
So what solutions did we say?
I mean,
Gym membership?
we already
We have to establish the standards
Yeah,
that we
how
want to
we
meet for
evaluate
these
them.
for the solutions.
Hi, this is a reserve room at 11, so I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. Sorry about that.
Okay.
All
Can we
right,
have
that's
like
fine.
5 more minutes? We're recording something for a project. Thank you. Okay, so we've been talking for like 40 minutes. I'm just like,
28.
oh really?
Yeah.
When we started. Okay.
Alright, let's pause and go to a different one. Yeah. Sorry, Betsy. Hold on. Perfect. Alright, so where were we?
So the criteria and the standards for the solutions that we're going to come up with.
Is it recording? Is it recording? Yeah.
So, I think the most important part about it is being able to define like actual depression and not just like short-term like interim depression.
Well, are we talking about solutions to depression within Penn State?
But just like within like a college environment.
Okay.
Within students.
Okay.
How about we like specify it as Penn State so that before we can make like more specific solutions that are actually like able to be implemented.
Yeah, I mean we talk about
Yeah.
both.
But let's start by like naming out the solutions that we have. I think
Gym membership.
the gym membership
Being
would be
free
good.
or whatever, yeah.
What's the criteria?
Yeah, we need to establish
Oh, yeah.
standards before we move on.
Okay, we can evaluate by the rate of like improvement, so like a percentage of like the amount of depressed students from like 1 year to the next year.
So like measurability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe a decreased suicide rate. I don't know.
Decrease suicide rate, and then maybe also like an overall GPA within, we can like, if we wanted to go as far as like within majors, if that's possible, like maybe, I don't know if there's like a school GPA. I guess there is, cause like whenever you apply, like there's an average GPA.
Yeah, Penn State it's 2.8
That's
something.
Penn State's average GPA.
Mm-hmm. You have to take into account like engineers and everything like that. Like engineering school's very, very hard.
So is their GPA like fairly
A lot
low?
lower. Yeah. I don't know if you guys are in the business school, but like
Ours are a lot higher than like science majors.
yeah, business is like a lot easier.
So what's the general like business GPA?
I don't know what the general.
3.2.
I don't. Yeah, that's. I mean, you have to have
That's a lot, huh?
you have to have a 3.2 to get into the business school.
Yeah.
So what is like a general like pre-med GPA?
I mean, I don't know what the general pre-med is, but I know for my program, the requirement to stay in it, you need a 3.5 science GPA and non-science GPA.
Like the science classes?
What's
With
yeah?
your
What,
science. So
what's
you
your
need,
major?
So you need a 3.5 science GPA, and then you need a 3.5 overall, because like you have to take like gen eds and all that, so you still need to get. So basically, you need to have the same amount of A's and B's
Yeah.
for
What's your major?
pre-med.
Pre-med.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm like in like the pre-med program though.
You're
so
in a
it's
special program.
Yeah, so it's different. I don't
You're
know.
not
what
like
the-
regular pre-med.
Right, exactly.
I was gonna say because like I know some kids who are in pre-med that don't have 3.5s.
Right.
Oh,
Just
I think
the
I
classes
know.
are very hard. Like
Yeah.
very, very hard.
I mean, on top of that, it's very like varied. Like I know pre-meds that have 3.0s. I know pre-meds that have like 3.8s, 3.9s. Like I don't know. I know for my program though, we just need a 3.5. But I guess like overall, people that are applying to med school nowadays, you need like a 3.5 or 3.6 range
Mhm.
to like even be looked at.
Do you think that plays like into depression? Like
Oh yeah.
kids
absolutely.
have to have a certain GP. Like for like what are you saying? You have to have a 3.5. From
Right.
business school, you have to have a 3.2 to get in. For finance,
I
you,
think
for
that's
finance, you have to have a 3.5. Do you think that like
Yeah, I think
plays
those are
a
like
huge
external
role.
motivators, like we were talking about
Yeah.
earlier, where
Mhm.
you're, a lot of people are just like learning for the grade, which is kind of like a scary thought. Like instead of going to
That's true.
school and like learning the material, I know I'm guilty of it. Sometimes teachers like teach to the test, and I just study exactly what's on the exam to get
I mean,
there.
I think for any of the science classes, even, like,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody really learns just to learn.
I think that like it's
Yeah.
also
That sucks.
Yeah.
I think it's also applicable to like my nursing major, which is like obviously not good because like that's our direct practice. I just think that like we move at such a like fast pace that it's hard to like apply these skills even though we have clinicals, but like obviously our main priority is passing or like getting an A because we have like a cutoff limit where you can't be in the major anymore. So I think those stressors that like we have within our colleges that have like certain GPAs or even like for people who already anticipate grad school, like you getting a B now, it's like so much more stressful because you know that that's gonna affect your chances of going to grad school.
I think undergrad is honestly just like a weed out system though. Like you just need to get through all these classes and then you start learning your field or whatever you want to do
I was
basically.
gonna say like with business, you learn 95% of what you need to know for your job on the job.
Yeah.
So you don't
Exactly.
like apply any like most of the stuff you learn like in college to your job. Like the job I have is accounting right now that I'm taking is accounting, and I'm a supply chain major. So like I'm not using really any of my business.
You say your job, like your post-grad job?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and like I'm being an auditor, like it's accounting, so it has nothing to do with like my actual major. So you learn like on the job, which is I think like one of the things like if you're in like your program, it's a lot more technical. So like what you are learning actually is applicable to.
But at the same
What you're
time, I
gonna
know like my older year that's at med school now, like they're all telling me like when I came in here in the summer last year, so my freshman summer here, I took Bio 110, which is just like general bio, and like when they went to med school, like they said their first, like, one of their first classes was the same general bio.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel like for the most part, some people just don't even pay attention now. They just study for the test because in, like, for example, in med school, you're gonna learn all this stuff all over again anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like, why, kill myself now to try to get.
I think a lot of students don't grasp that concept, which is why a lot of people get depressed.
Yeah.
It's because they're freaking out about a certain grade, and when really it's not like that applicable to real life.
It's like when we take gen eds, like, I know that as a business major, I'm never gonna do anything with science, I'm pretty sure, because I don't like it, and I wouldn't accept a job with that. But like, we have to take 9 credits of science.
Yeah.
I take like horticulture and like
Online
Geoscience.
classes,
just to get an A to like,
boost your
Get it on there,
GPA,
yeah.
and just get it out of the way.
So it sounds like we have our 3 criteria: the suicide rate decrease, the depression rate decrease, and like GPA increase. Do you guys agree with those 3?
It's all just one criteria, measurability.
I know, but those are the different like aspects of the criteria.
No, but like when they say criteria, they mean like, what are the costs associated? Like, what is it measurable? What's the economical impact? Fairness, things like that, are like what you would have as a criteria. Those are just like different subsets of one criteria.
So what's the economical impact?
Like economic impact, I mean, like, I guess you could say like consistency, like what would be the responsibility for students and the university in question,
Yeah.
per se,
Yeah.
for example.
And then social impact, obviously. You can talk about like the family impact, like the impact depression plays on families, especially when we talk about like suicide.
This is just like social effects,
Mm-hmm.
economic impact, and measurability.
Mm-hmm.
alright, so now do we start naming enough solutions?
Yeah, just with those in mind.
Yeah,
You
of course.
can.
So like we said, gym membership included for
So that'll be economic.
wellness.
Yeah, there'd be like
Yeah.
an economic impact
Yeah.
with the university.
I think along with the gym membership, we can like make that more broad and like talk about like more programs that can be implemented within the student health center, and just like use the student health center to promote wellness activities in general.
I mean, do we, how like our tuition is like $40,000 for out-of-state students, and like, what is it for in-state students? 30, that's still really, really high. Like, what are they doing with all of that money?
They're remodeling very nice buildings that are already nice.
Yeah, like,
I
all of
thought
our
it was,
money,
like,
not to make it like
In-states
Oh, like 18 or 19.
usually half.
Really?
I know that
Yeah.
Penn State has like a very high in-state tuition
Yeah.
compared to other.
It's like 25, like by the time everything's done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering, like, why, I don't know if this has so much to do with like depression and how we can combat it, but like, why
Like
it is so expensive, like, if there's a way to drive down the cost at all, which would in turn lead to like a decreased impact on like the students.
Oh, definitely, like
Financial stress?
financial stress is definitely like
Yeah.
a big aspect in depression. Yes, like I would think.
And I'm just wondering if like those $40,000 that each student is giving every year, what exactly it's going towards, if it's being saved towards something, if it's going back to the students.
Well, some of it's for your courses,
Yeah,
but I guess like housing, food.
Mm.
like, is there a way to drive the cost down, is what I'm saying, so that there could be less of a financial stress that could lead towards
Yeah.
depression.
I don't think like there's gonna be. I don't think that.
I don't know if it's
Yeah,
gonna be like
yeah.
viable, but.
Yeah, I don't think that would ever happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought where you were going with it is, like, if we're spending so much, why isn't the school taking more initiative to combat this?
That too,
Yeah.
because there is, I feel like there's gotta be excess monetary funds.
Right, I mean, I just know
Use
that,
it towards something.
With that, I know that I was reading from the LA Times, a lot of what why colleges don't do more is that they don't feel that they should be like a public health care like facility, like, because like that's essentially what they would become if they were taking initiatives like that
Mm.
to care for students in that way, because they're going to have a university health center regardless for liability. but they're not going to like go out and like actively take care of students because then
Because if something goes wrong, then
Right.
there's like an even larger liability. That makes sense.
So,
I think there just needs to be more awareness
yeah, I
about
was gonna say
about
that too.
depression. So like, I mean, we talked about solutions, we talked about like the gym membership we talked about, but I think like the underlying fact is that there needs to be more like awareness brought upon the subject of it.
Awareness and more of a general understanding that depression isn't a horrible stigma. No one's gonna like hate you if you have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone needs to know that they, basically almost every college student has some sort of, or some symptom of depression.
At some point.
At some point, yeah.
Whether it's actually clinically diagnosed depression, seasonal affective disorder, and all of that.
Anxiety during a test
Yeah.
or before tests,
Right.
or studying for a test.
So I feel like if everyone thinks that they have it, then it's not going to be as much of a stigma anymore.
Yeah. From like our conversation, I feel like it would be very beneficial, like as a solution to, like you said, raise more awareness. But I think that can like be easily implemented within our program here. Like you know how like every single student freshman year has to take a first year seminar. I think that can be included in the curriculum. Like it doesn't have to be a very large aspect, but just go over like the symptoms and just point students in the resources. I think if you were to do that freshman year, that'll set students off on a good foundation for the rest of their undergraduate career.
Yeah, like I had never heard of the like therapy Kaplan or whatever until Betsy had brought it up last class and I researched it. And I think it'd be important for us to like learn that, like you said in the beginning of freshman year, just like we have those alcohol courses.
I think I was gonna say, we have
Yeah.
alcohol courses, that could just be another part of it, just.
Exactly.
Yeah, like a survey type thing.
And I think like those fresher seminars, the purpose of those are to expose us to our resources here in Penn State, but I feel like it just skips over the health promotion aspects of Penn State.
And the key, like with what you were saying, the University of Chicago actually does something similar to that, but instead of making it like a class that you go to, they make it so that like when we come in for new student orientation, they would just do like they would do targeting programs just for general student populations instead of like people saying, I think I have this problem. So they would just do it together like that, and
Well,
they
it's
have
always better
trained
to combat
coordinated
the problem before it
groups,
occurs.
professionals.
Yeah.
So we have 4 minutes left to go through our solutions. Going back to like our raising awareness, I know that I was looking at the Penn State resources and part of like the CAPS program. They have a Show You Care campaign, which is designed to encourage Penn State students to reach out to each other and offer support, whether it's like referring to their roommates or like RAs or like the different services that we have here. I think that this campaign is something that a lot of people don't know about, so if we were to make it more prominent, like you know how we have like sexual assault awareness month, like if it was just something that was implemented more, then it'll be a lot more beneficial to our students.
And I think they have like the suicide prevention one, but I feel like it should
Oh yeah.
something like that. But it should probably be more broad in terms of like depression, not just suicide.
I mean, because
That's drastic.
that is like suicide is depression.
Yeah, it is depression.
Yeah.
So instead of being suicide month, it could be like depression awareness.
Depression month.
Yeah, depression awareness month or something like that.
Do you guys see any like cons in the solutions that we just talked about as it relates to our solution criteria?
I just feel like everything that we've talked about in regards to awareness is like, we don't know how the campus is going to be affected yet until we actually do it. Because we don't know how everyone's going to react, if it's going to work well. And also like funding, where are we going to get like the money for everything?
I think the best thing we touched on is the class. Like, you know, you have to take alcohol awareness. Like when you come into Penn State,
Yeah,
they're like,
extra money for
when you come into Penn State, you get a class and they're like, watch out for drinking too much, blah blah blah. They should in that class they should also touch upon depression. It wouldn't cost anything, and they would bring light to the matter.
Yeah.
I think that'll be like our best solution, and it's very easy to implement, and it doesn't take a lot of like outside resources. I think the only like problem that we'd have to consider is like the training, but we already have so much training within Penn State already that we can easily, it wouldn't take like outside funds or anything to bring it up.
There's also, when we do those alcohol videos, it's like a very passive process, like all you do is just like press next. I think like I know certain people that didn't even watch the videos for alcohol awareness, they just like had someone press it for them to go through it. But
Or just did other things while they
Yeah.
press it, or just watch TV and just press
yeah,
it.
so and because this is such an important issue, everyone is required to take seminar freshman year. Like they could have at least one lecture where they go through all of it. And
Yeah,
that wouldn't be like super expensive, you can bring a PowerPoint and you already have teachers teaching it, so.
yeah, it wouldn't be expensive at all, you just have
Yeah,
teachers take one day, one class out of
What do
it.
they talk about freshmen? Because I never took freshman seminar because my program, we don't know how to take it. But
well, for business majors, we just like went through our resume and stuff.
Yeah, we went through,
It's different for every.
yeah, in my freshman seminar with business, we went through all the different business or business majors.
In my freshman seminar, they made us like tour the library.
I do that too. Oh, I did that too.
So I think we touched pretty much on how to implement it within the classes, within the professors, and how we can put it into effect. One of the last questions are we responsible or do we need to delegate this?
We as like us as a group, or as a community, or as a Penn State family?
Probably as a community, Penn State community.
Yeah, I think everyone's responsible.
I think more so than the students, it's the adults that should be responsible for this.
The faculty.
Yeah. Because obviously we can do things that are student run and stuff, but there's only so much that we can do as students
Yeah.
to reach everyone. And if the whole entire like Board of Education or whatever decides that they want to do this and it's important, they have the power to actually do it.
And as far as delegation, I think it is really important to delegate because if we don't delegate, we won't know if it's successful at meeting our criteria.
Like, would it be, I mean, just like with social fairness, would it be fair to hold faculty liable for something that not every student is going to have a problem with? Because I mean, they didn't come to become academic professionals.
No,
Yeah,
you
I'm not
can't hold
saying
any,
that
I don't think you
they're
can hold anyone liable for it.
But you're saying that,
I think-
they should be responsible for it then? Or is,
No, I think
What
they
do you
should
mean
do
by-
something to implement it,
Yeah.
to implement like awareness about it.
Because
not-
obviously like
definitely not
President
responsible
Barron or
for
something
it.
is going to have more power than like the 5 of us to implement something about it. Not saying that we can't do it, because
right.
we can do it, but it'd just be easier, I guess, for him
Yeah.
to, in
Should be
a
the
sense.
universal, not
power to.
universal, but, I mean, I guess universal, like if we're talking about every college, not just Penn State, but I think there should be some sort of either class or it should be just brought to light about depression when you first come to college. Because I'm pretty sure every college in the US brings to light alcohol abuse. Like that's a very well known, like,
Like the drinking norm is
exactly,
a
yeah,
thing in
it's a college, yeah,
and depression is starting to become a thing in college,
yeah,
which means it's also important.
yeah.
Did we touch on everything?
Yeah, go team.